Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John Holmes Studios. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer of the Action Network. I'm joined by Chris Raybon, the man, the myth, the legend, and Kyle Murray from Roto Grinders at KMurDFS, KMURRDFS. You know Chris Raybon from the Action Network podcast, from projections for both our fantasy and props and everything. One of the smartest bettors I have ever known. He's the best bettor. I've called him the best bettor I know. Uh, they're going to join me and we're going to do best bets for game four between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals. Broke down a lot of this game with Brandon Anderson on Thursday. I'm losing track of what day it is in the summer. And we'll have an underdog lineup tonight as well as a parlay for you. Lots to get to on today's show. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button as you're watching at youtube.com/the Action Network. And make sure to leave your bets in the comments and we'll talk about them when we do open run before we head out of this show. All right, let's start here and let's talk a little bit big picture here. So, okay, this was a tough one. It's 2-1. Thunder are 0-8 ATS on the road in the playoffs, 4-4 straight up. This is my this I think this question matters. Raybon was making fun of me in our pre-show because he's like all these cliche questions because I do. I put some of these like big picture, very talking sports stuff on here. And one of the reasons is I do think there's portals to how we bet this game. And Chris, I think one of the ways to approach this game is, do you believe that Mark Dagnall is A, going to adjust and get outside of his comfort zone, and B, will those adjustments be effective? Because to me, like that's what this is about, is because they stole game one, Carlisle was able to hold back on some adjustments. Dags made a lot of adjustments in game two. Carlisle came back and hit him with a lot of stuff in game three, and now it's game four. And now the Thunder get to adjust to the adjustments that Carlisle made to the adjustments that Dagnall made in game two after they lost game one. But this is a big part of it, is if this is Tibbs, I'm like, no, they're not going to adjust at all. They're not doing anything. If this is Doc Rivers, I'm like, no, he's not going to change the starting lineup. He's just going down with the ship. But Mark Dagnall, NBA Coach of the Year winner, 168 games, highly regarded, but also first time in the finals, only his second real playoff run. So I'll ask you, do you trust Mark Dagnall to make the adjustments he needs to in this spot?
Yes, I do. I mean, he's already had one of the best defensive schemes I think of all time, or at least that we've seen in my lifetime. This team has been winning games for pretty much 2 straight years now, just at the top of the league in terms of percentage. Rick Carlisle is a really good coach. This is the NBA Finals. Like, it's never gonna be easy. It's never gonna. It's gonna kind of go back and forth. But do I trust him? Yeah, because we know statistically that coaches, their biggest impact is gonna be on the defensive side of the ball, and it's gonna be on effort and things like that. And so the Thunder, like, you expect their defense to be there. So on the offensive side, it's gonna come down to just not being as sloppy and not turning the ball over as much. But I think that's on the players, if you ask me, because they wasted a big game from Chet. They wasted a big game from Dort. J-Dub was rolling, but some sloppy turnovers by SGA and J-Dub, which are the two primary ball handlers. I don't think you're changing that up. Like, at this point, those are your two primary ball handlers regardless. So I think, Dagnall will do what he has to do defensively. But at the same time, I think the Thunder have played the Pacers okay defensively. It was just really that game one, like you said, that was supposed to go to OKC, and they're supposed to be up 2-1 right now. So really, it's more about the players, and if he has to make sure they don't come out tight. So I guess that's a little bit on him, but ultimately it falls on the players. But I do trust him.
Mock Rivers in the comment section here at youtube.com/the Action Network says Raybon is locked in. And well, Raybon's always locked in, baby. Kyle, I have a prop specific angle on this. Okay. You and I are going to go head to head tonight on a prop. And one of the reasons is because I think that Dags is going to make a key adjustment. And so I'm asking you, how do you kind of factor in that? Like, are you just like, you got to show it to me before I'm going to make an adjustment on my projections? What do you do when it's like the logical move is for X, Y, or Z to happen?
Yeah, I think in the regular season it's more so like I want to see it first before I'm
Mhm.
impacting, minutes projections and whatnot. But I do agree with you that in playoff series where you can kind of get a feel for the changes that a coach might make, then I think you need to be a little bit more proactive, and especially in a game like this where the Thunder. I mean, this is basically a must win. I'm assuming they're treating it as a must win. Can't go down 3-1. So I do think that adds a couple extra layers there. And I saw a couple of your picks in the action app, so I know where we're going to be going head to head on. But in terms of like the adjustments that I think he's going to make, I do think he's going to try to do a couple different things. But all in all, like they have been the better team in this series, even though they're down 2-1. They just haven't been able to finish these games. Like I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but they've been leading coming into the fourth quarter in all these games. So I think it's a spot where changes might be required, but also like they've been playing well. They just haven't been able to finish these games, and I think a lot of it does come down to, especially in that last game, they some of these guys just looked gassed. I know the announcers were kind of calling it out with some of these effort plays where Halliburton took the three. SGA closed out, but didn't, really get there for a rebound. Didn't really have any effort there. And then the Obi Toppin putback where Caruso and I think it was Chet didn't even bother trying to get a body there on Toppin. So a lot of it has just has come down to effort, in my opinion. And like maybe it's fatigue, maybe it's stamina. So maybe that'll change some things rotation and minutes wise. But all in all, I still think that they've been the better team in this series. So I don't know if they go too far from what they've been doing so far in this series. But I do agree with you. There's probably going to be some changes coming to the rotation tonight.
I think it's a good read, right? And I think that's the question here is, does Dags think that they're in a good enough spot to not do it? Right? If Dagnall's
Yeah.
like, no, look, like we've been all right. We just got sloppy in game three. Game one was weird and they came back and we lost attention. If we finish the game the way that we need to, we're gonna win this game and we're gonna be fine. I don't need to get outside of our comfort zone and ask guys to do stuff they haven't done all year, etc., or to move away from our game plan coming in that we felt really good about. Slim Julian says, Rayvon looking real happy today. I'm tailing. I like it. You're just tailing off of Rayvon's vibes. It's an incredible look right there. So let's talk about that real quickly because Kyle mentioned it. The Thunder have led after three quarters in each of these games, Chris. All of them,
Yeah.
all three. They've led after three quarters. Now, I spar with Brandon Anderson on this because I'm like, look, it's great that the team that you picked was up 20 or 15 or whatever, but like the one at the end of the game is what matters. Like that's what winds up deciding who wins or loses and who covers or doesn't. Um, what do you make of the fact that they have led after three quarters, that they have won most of the quarters, that they have held a lead for the majority of this series? How does that impact how you're looking at the series?
I just wonder if we're gonna get a SGA playing a full 24 in the second half. To me, I just that lineup when they start, the second and fourth quarter, and J Dub is the primary ball handler. I just think it's too easy for that lineup to go cold at times. If J Dub's not hitting his shots, so either maybe you change the rotation, you pull SGA out like a minute in the third or something like that. But I could see SGA playing the entire fourth quarter. That would be an adjustment I could see. I know you guys are kind of alluding to going a little bigger, maybe more I heart, but he kind of took himself out of the last game with the foul trouble. But overall, yeah, we know the Thunder are the better team. We see. I mean, the Pacers definitely they outplayed. They're better than their regular season record. Like
Right.
they beat. I mean, the Cavs, who I thought very highly of. I mean, they just completely walloped them. This Knicks team, I mean, straight out coached them, and they have a coach that can, is one of the coaches that does make a little bit of a difference in Rick Carlisle. So yeah, I think the Thunder are a better team, but the thing you worry about is them coming out tight in this one now, because like that's what I said on the last shows. I didn't think the Pacers had to get both of these to put them in a good spot, but I definitely thought the game three was the more important one because now you put the Thunder in a hole. They've been in a hole, but you put them in a hole. If they could go down 3-1, it's a real important game, and they, like you said, they haven't been here. Dags really hasn't been here, so that's what you would worry about if you're the Thunder, and I think that's what's kind of been happening. So I would just, if it was me, I would just want SGA out there for every single minute of that fourth. So that's what I'll kind of be looking for in this one.
He was the only guy to play 42, and I've kind of complained about this for 2 days. I'm like, look, if you're going to play, I don't mind you shortening the rotation. I don't mind you playing your starters or your best players more. Play Lou Dort 42. Play Alex Caruso 30.
Those are defenders,
Like
though.
35. I know, but that's what they need. If they're going to win the
I
series, it's
mean,
going to have to be with defense. I think it's going to have to be with
you think
defense. Like,
you
they
think
don't
so?
want to get into this. Like,
They
let's
had ten,
go. let's go possession for possession with Indiana on offense. I don't think
And
that's a good solution.
they have like 10, their two best players are 10 turnovers this
I,
game. Like I just think they need to like tighten it up on offense, and I think it
I
would
agree.
help maybe just that J-Dub lineup. But
Let's take a look at the market. So this opened five. I grabbed it 5.5 at the very last second before it slipped to six. It just like immediately slipped to six. And there's some 6.5s in the market as we sit here about 2 hours, inside 2 hours from game time, from tip. There's one 6.5 in the market. Let me correct that. There's one 6.5 in the market. Otherwise, it's painted six. This thing is settled at six. We look at our pro tools using the Action Network Pro subscription, which you can get at the Action Network app or at actionnetwork.com. Uh, 61% of the tickets are on the Pacers, 54% of the money. So there's a 7% differential in the money going in on OKC here. But we've tracked sharp action coming back on the Pacers. So what this kind of looks like is this opened, it got hit, and then once it got up to 6.5 and it touched that, that's when we saw sharp money come back in on Indiana. And that's kind of been the pressure point consistently. I asked Michael Fiddle this week. I was like, "Do you think this is going to see seven?" And he was like, "No, I don't think we're not going to see it. It won't get to seven. At 6.5 is going to be the resistance point." And sure enough, there's a 6.5 plus 6.5 minus 115 in the market, and that's all you can really get. Six everywhere else, so it's settled in at six there. We'll see if the late money comes in on OKC. It has in most of these games. We've seen like a push for the Pacers day of, and then another late move right before tip on the Thunder. So I'm curious to see if this closes 6.5 or six, but I don't think it gets to seven at all. Total wise, we're at 227 and a half. There's a 227. I think this is really interesting, Chris. 94% of the tickets we're tracking are on the over. 95% of the money is on the over, and we're tracking sharp action on the over. This thing hasn't moved from 227. It's just sitting there. There's one 227 and a half in the market. That's it. I I'm a little surprised that there's not more of a movement on this up to 228, 228 and a half based off of what seems to be everyone liking the over in this spot.
yeah, I mean, we talk about this. I think the total, like the true total, is lower than the numbers the books have been posting. They've just been posting higher numbers and getting away with it because there's been an overwhelming amount of money on the over. But you also got to remember when you look at the money and bet percentages for a total, it doesn't necessarily mean as much as it does for a spread or the spread money line kind of taken in together, because I think the books are taking a lot more money on spreads and sometimes even money lines than totals. But I say I would disagree with this like 90 whatever percent on the over. I think a 1 day rest, deep into the playoffs, especially Thunder could come out tight here. I think it seems sets up more as an under game, but it could go the way these fourth quarters have been going. Overtime, I think it could be a good bet as well.
Yeah, I had that in game three. I didn't quite get there, and I was hopeful. I was like, this is a 3-point game with like 7 minutes to go, and then the Pacers blew it open. That was tough. I'm gonna go back in on that one in this one as well. Just a final note on the total. This was 228 yesterday. So when we did the show, it was 227 and a half, 228. Touched 228 for like 30 minutes, and then got back down the market, back down to 227 and a half, and now it's back down to 227. So last 24 hours market move has been back onto the under. It just hasn't been able to compensate for the first 24 hours of how much over money was taken. I lean under here pretty significantly. I'm on Pacers team total under 110 and a half, 109 and a half. I think that's a good number. If it's a good way to play OKC, if you don't want to lay the money line and you don't want to mess with the spread, since they are again 0 and 8 against the spread. I have that -6 ticket, which I'm very, very nervous about. That's a good way to kind of an alternative look is to play the Pacers team total under. I mean, it's possible. Like the Pacers won a game, one with it going under. I have a hard time seeing a Thunder win in a shootout. That gets me in a precarious position because I do think that I said before the series the Pacers defense was the most underrated element in this series, and I think that that's absolutely been true. We're gonna do a little bit of underdog right now. Let's talk underdog. Underdog is one of the best places to make picks during playoff basketball. While they score buckets, you could score cash. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play right now in your state. Their app has over 100,000 five-star reviews and millions of players. To play, all you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. You can choose from things like points, assists, and so much more. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. We've got a lineup for you here today from Underdog. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander higher than 33 and a half points. You're going to hear more on that from Kyle Murray coming up. Chet Holmgren lower than 1.5 blocks. Chris Raybon, you found this one. I was blown away by this. I like, how did I miss this? This is great stuff from you. Talk to me about Chet Holmgren lower than 1.5 blocks.
Yeah, so the basic thing is Miles Turner, being that he can space the floor, tends to pull opposing big men out of the paint, out of rim protection
Yep.
position, and so you've seen Chet go one or fewer blocks all 3 games of the series. And if you just look at the broader numbers, for the season, Indiana is top 3 in fewest blocks allowed to opposing centers. And then I know that you and a lot of other people feel like you might get some more double big, which then that just puts Chet at the 4, which is also probably not ideal for his block numbers. So if he wasn't going to get there, and I mean he played near 35 minutes in game 3. I don't know if that's the median. I think he'd be more around 30 with a good chance to go under 30. So going under is going lower than his blocks.
TJ McConnell, 3.5 assists lower, only 7 potential assists for him in game 3, and that was like his best one of the series. I don't like this matchup for McConnell. I got a lot of Stuckey was firmly planted in an uncomfortable place on my body last game about TJ McConnell and
What?
wanting me to
Hey
put some
yo.
respect on that man's name. And look, as soon as I said it, I was like, I hate this matchup for McConnell. He like steal, score, bucket, slicing assist to top. Like it was terrific. TJ was amazing in that game. But I don't like the half court stuff for them, and a lot of it's like, yeah, he got like slicing cutter assist, which OKC never gives up. I'm expecting better attention to detail tonight. With 7 potentials in game 3, I'll go ahead and take lower on TJ McConnell assist 3.5. Finally, Obi Toppin, higher 4.5 rebounds. This has been like a really good look during these finals. It's been a really good look going back the last really 4 games, going back to the Knicks series. He's at 6.556. Now it's close, but he is going higher on this number, so we're gonna throw him in there as well. If you play that on the flex, if you get 4 right, you're going to win 6.4 times your money. You get only 3 right in the flex, and you're still going to win 1.6 times your money. You can do that at Underdog. Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code Buckets100 to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code Buckets100. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right, time for best bets for game 4 between the Thunder and the Pacers. Kyle Murray, tell me what you're betting tonight.
Yeah, I got 2 player props both on the Thunder side, taking Isaiah Hartenstein under 8.5 points and assists, and then going back to SGA. I told these guys before we went live, I am nothing but stubborn, so I'm going back to him over 33.5 points in this one.
Chris Raybon, what do you like tonight?
Rolling with the first half under. I already mentioned. I think that the Thunder could come out tight, and we've seen 2 of these games. Before this one go under. I think this total is a little high, full game and first half. And going back with the Neesmith under 1.5 turnovers for a lot of reasons, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit.
I like Thunder money line. Best you can get right now is a 225 in the market. I understand that that's paying. I can't, in good conscience, give out Thunder -6 when they are literally never covered a road game in these playoffs. I can't, in good conscience, do it. I am on it. I have bet it. I talked it through with Brandon Anderson about whether I should buy out of it, but I'm going to just go ahead and give out Thunder money line. I think they're going to win this game, but the spread does make me considerably nervous given how they played on the road. Um, I'm also taking Isaiah Hartenstein over 8.5 points and assists. So let's start there, Kyle. Why are you hating on iHeart? Why are you
Listen,
doing that? What's the
I'm
game
a
plan?
huge iHeart fan. I think last year he was one of my most bet players, but for this series, and I've been talking about it at length and on a couple different of these shows. The minutes are just something that are questionable for me here. He's hit the under on this number in each of the last 2 games. He scored just 11 total points on just 5 shots in that time frame. So taking the under on 8.5 points and assists. The assist, he had that big spike assist game in game two with 4 assists, but outside of that, no other assists in this series. So when looking at my projections, I have him for 20 minutes tonight, which I wouldn't be surprised to see him fall even a couple minutes under that, play 17 or 18 minutes. And I have him just projected for just 5.5 points and 1.5 assists in this one. It comes down to minutes for Hartenstein, obviously, and I think when you look across the board here against the Pacers, it's just so easy for them to size him off the floor. Miles Turner hasn't really been all that great in this series. Obi Toppin has been very good in this series. So I think there's just plenty of paths to Hartenstein playing fewer minutes. I understand the point to where the Thunder might make adjustments in this one here, but when reflecting the matchup and the players across the board, I think it's just easy for him to get sized off the floor here. Chet had that big game in game three playing the five. I think they go back to that pretty significantly here. So again, projecting for 20 minutes adds even a little bit of wiggle room in my mind on this projection, as I could easily see a 17 or 18 minute game here for Isaiah Hartenstein.
Okay, here's my side. Big change. Game two. Okay, let's go back to game one. Game one, they pushed SGA middle. They forced him middle and gave him the lane. That's why he got a lot of layups. And they took away his assist lanes. So the Thunder said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, then we're going to run side empty pick and roll. And we're going to run it to the side, left, right, and try and get him to that baseline shot. And it worked. They got whatever he wanted doing that. And he was able to make slices and get under the rim. And like he made a lot of like really great reads in that game. Game three, the counter was, all right, now we're going to blitz him. They started showing two on ball consistently versus SGA. No more drop. They were sending either, they were not only were they playing at the level sometimes, but even when they switched and he attacked side, they pushed him over the screen to the side, and then they brought the double. And Shea is not any good at making the ball reversal out of that corner. He's tall, but he's not a great passer in terms of his placement. So if he makes that pass, it's at risk of either getting picked off or going out of bounds. What's the counter? Oh, it's very simple. You just run Isaiah Hartenstein pick and roll and you hit him on the short roll because Shea can hit those simple basic reads very easily. And that means that Hartenstein's going to have middle floater, which I like a lot more than the side floaters. You saw in that clip there him airballing one. Not great. If he takes the middle floater, he's really consistent at it. It gives him the lob to Chet in the dunker spot. It gives him the kick out to guys in the corner. That maximizes, and that's a very easy way to neutralize this. The other thing here is that Dagnall has won this one battle he wanted to win. The Pacers starting lineup was plus 16.4 net rating coming into the series. They have not been as effective in this series. Siakam, Turner, and Halliburton together are like -8 in net rating, but they're killing them in all of the subsequent lineups. I did it again. Subsequent lineups. So, a very reasonable counter to this is to move iHeart into a larger role, play more double big, even if they start Case and Wallace. Puts iHeart in a very good position. I am Galaxy braiding this in terms of expecting an adjustment from an NBA head coach and one who's very process oriented, but I just continue to think that this is not a bad matchup with the way that the Pacers have evolved their coverage. I like Hartenstein over 8.5 points and assists. Chris Raybon, break the tie.
I would go over. I just think it's kind of a ebb and flow in the series. And Hartenstein, I mean, he was in the game for probably like a minute, and next thing you know, he had 2 fouls. He just kind of took himself out of the whole flow. And you could also just see, like I mentioned, that second quarter, fourth quarter starting lineup with J Dub and iHeart now. Maybe they switch that up and get iHeart in the game earlier and let Chet play in that second lineup, in that second, starting the second quarter, fourth quarter unit a little more like they were before. So I could definitely see it. I mean, I would also you could also throw like the rebounds in there, but I do see iHeart being a bigger factor in this one. He was because he was a non-factor, and that's one of the answers that Thunder have, and he's been much more of a factor all season long. And this is a must-win, so you usually see those things kind of regress to the mean. So that's more of the angle for me. I don't expect like a prominent role player on a team that on the better team to have two straight just horrible games.
All right. Well, whoever comes out on top of this, I will either gloat or I will give Kyle endless credit after the game on our post game show, which you can catch here at youtube.com/the action network. Chris Raybon, this angle, this is like a very, Gifford Gould, our producer, and I were both like, yeah, this is a very Chris Raybon angle. First half under 115, both contrarian but particular. Talk to me about the first half under.
Yeah, it's actually you can probably get a 116 and a half out there because the full game total is kind of chilling. So always find the best number. But yeah, so if you look at the finals, first half unders just throughout finals history, 60% to the under over the past 2 decades. And really in the series, we've only seen that game three was one where it was a high scoring first half. Before that, it was 57, 45, and 59, 41 type of first halves. I think the Thunder could come out a little tight. But at the same time, I think, possessions might go a little longer. Just a lot of turnovers for the Thunder in that last one. Wouldn't be surprised if they kind of slow it down a little, get into the right shot, not try to get too crazy. And then we know about their defense. The Thunder defense tends to start hot more often than not. Indiana kind of took it in game three, but I expect a little bit of a kind of a regression to the mean. So I think overall these totals have been too high in this series, and that the first half totals are even higher if you kind of projected it out, 115 times two is you're talking about 230, 232 if you're looking at a 116. So I just think you're getting even better value going under the first half.
How you look at game three, I think, is a lot of how you should look at the total because the Pacers got out and ran in that game, and that's something that the OKC hasn't let pretty much anybody do. What Chris talked about, like effort, attention to detail, all that stuff was missing. Like that's why
Yeah.
I could talk all about Dags, but to me, the reason I've been mentioning Dagnall so much is because I just flat out expect better. I have no reason to think OKC is not going to come out with a kind of lack of attention, the sloppiness that they had in game three. Not only the turnovers on their side, but just like not getting back, not making the extra
Yeah.
rotation, not playing with the kind of intensity and physicality that they have since October. So I have to trust that they're going to make those adjustments. For me, the answer is okay, that helps you get back even, I think, by playing with more attention to detail and maybe even get a lead on Indiana. But I still think Dagnall's going to have to make those adjustments in order to get the kind of outcome that they need because of how good the Pacers are in closing these games. But I lean with Chris here. I think the under is a pretty good play. I especially like Pacers team total under. We settled on that one as a good play. I don't mind just playing the combined total because there's a possibility that OKC just doesn't play well on the road again. They just want to get like they just they shot pretty well and the Pacers didn't in game three. So that might flip here and it might just be role players again. And that could still wind up with an under spot here based off of the combined total. But I do think that Pacers team total under is probably the best spot for regression in terms of their two point execution and the margins and the kind of detail stuff that OKC failed to capitalize on in game three. Kyle, back to the well with SGA. I like this for what it's worth. SGA over 33 and a half points after probably his worst game of the playoffs, beyond maybe one of those Memphis games that didn't really matter. Why do you like the over here for 33 and a half points for SGA?
Yeah, for me, it just comes down to the minutes here for SGA. I mean, you played 42 minutes in game three. I have him for 40 minutes tonight, and I'm just never going to have SGA under this number when I'm projecting him for 40 plus minutes in this spot, especially coming off of a down game and a good matchup where we should be counting on excellent usage here for SGA, averaging about 23 field goal attempts and 8.5 free throw attempts over his last 10 games. But he's doing that on a 50% shooting, and that's something that we can expect for SJ. He's a highly efficient scorer, so that always adds to the positive feeling towards an over on SGA. And again, when I project him for 40 minutes, I am for right around 38 points in this spot. So it all comes down to minutes and usage. I think it's essentially a must-win spot here for this Thunder team. Cannot go down 3-1 in this series. So, Raybon kind of teased to maybe seeing SGA playing the entire second half or maybe the entire fourth quarter. regardless, either way, no matter where he gets the minutes, I do think 40 plus minutes should be pretty much a lock here tonight for SGA. I'd be very surprised if he's not playing at least 40 tonight. So with that being the case, 33 and a half projects really well for me. This number is up to 34 and a half in some spots. So again, you can still get this at a pretty good number at 33 and a half. So I'm taking the over on SGA's points tonight.
Scott Foster's reputation as the extender is a little bit exaggerated. That's not as necessarily kind of as accurate as the viral stuff has made it sound like. But I'm expecting a lot of free throws from SGA tonight. I'm just anticipating double-digit trips to the line, and I'm with you on this. As we'll come back to more SGA when we get to our parlay here in a little bit. Chris Raybon, Aaron Nesmith under 1.5 turnover here, minus 195. But you like the value?
Yeah, it should be like over minus 300. I mean, if you look at the full season, he's 43 of 56, 77% of the time he's gone under this. In the postseason, right around the same rate, 14 and 19. He's been under. And then, in at home, 8 of 9. And why I think you have some kind of outs here is we know Indiana wants to get in the paint and kind of let that kind of create their shots and dictate their shots. Well, Nesmith is still going to be your catch and shoot threat. Like you don't want Nesmith necessarily dribbling into the paint and going downhill all game. And so you have that. You have the Mathurin emergence. I think they've needed him in this series for his screen navigation, for his shot creation. So that could also take minutes away from Nesmith at times. And then you got foul trouble, which you saw in the last game, and that also can play a part in anytime you're playing a really good team like OKC, where he's going to have to guard guys like SGA and J Dub. So I think you have a lot of ways for him not to get to 2 turnovers here, especially on his home floor. So again, if you just take the full season numbers, you're talking about a minus 335. This has consistently been in the high 100s. So I'll take that all day.
This is terrific. Great stuff, Chris. That's a great bet. Um, Great angle on that. A month under money line. I don't think I need to explain. Like they've led after 3 quarters. I don't think that they're. Hmm. I think the market is over exaggerated on OKC. I also, if Indiana goes up 3-1 on them, so be it. But everything about the series script tells me Thunder should be up 2-1, which is what we expected to start the series. The Pacers pulled off that upset and deserve a lot of credit for doing so. That switched everything, and that does give them the opportunity to win the series. But I still feel like the Thunder should not lose both in Indiana. I would have said from the beginning that OKC was definitely going to get one, probably two in OKC, and OKC was definitely going to get one, but not two in Indy. So outside of game one, script's been pretty much what I expected. I'm going to go with Thunder money line here for them to even the series, and then we'll start talking about different ways to attack the series if that is the case. We have a parlay for you before we do open run. So I bumped this up to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, 40 points. Seems a pretty good case for like the zigzag that we've seen with the the conversation about the 2 stars, right? Tyrese Halliburton, where is he? Where is Tyrese Halliburton disappeared to? Tyrese Halliburton has a great game. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, what a phenomenal MVP performance. Game 3. What's wrong with Shea? Is he too tired? Can Shea deliver for the Thunder? So I'm taking Shea Gilgeous-Alexander 40 plus points. The Thunder -6. We'll go ahead and we'll lay the 6 with them, even though it makes me extremely nervous. And the under 227.5. That's obviously inverse correlated. You can get that plus 1050 in the market right now. That's our parlay for tonight's show. Let's do some open run because we got some good questions in here from the folks joining us on YouTube. Cole Harvey says, "Hey Matt, I have Pacers. He has an exacta of Pacers Thunder, Pacers Thunder, Thunder Pacers Pacers at 200 and what 21,000. Good job by you. Would you bet Pacers Thunder Thunder straight money lines or how to bet the rest of the series? So we talked about this on buckets about the mechanical parlay versus the value that you can get in the market. If you don't want to deal with the stress of betting this game by game, you can get Pacers to win the series from behind as a pretty nice spot for you to be able to kind of combo this, or you can bet Thunder to win by behind as another counter for this as an opportunity that is in the market. You can find that out there as well. Ryan Smith is feeling Shea 30 plus points and Obi Toppin 12 points and Hallie 3 plus threes. That's a plus 500. SGA That's a three SGP parlay. Chris, how are you feeling about Halliburton scoring tonight in this one? Haven't heard you much on that one, even though you're on the first half under.
Yeah, so he started the series really hot from, or taking a lot of threes. I think he's cleared that in two of the three games. Uh, I would probably, I would feel okay about it, not great, just because I know at the end of the day he does want to kind of get in the paint and create from there. Now they're still giving him that open three, and he's been aggressive in taking it, but he's hit 7 of 16 over the last two. For me, I would just kind of be betting on some regression there. And again, I think the market is a little just too high on the total points in this series, so. I could see this as more of a defensive game where even if the Thunder struggle offensively, I think they'll lock in defensively. So I would be a little more weary about betting like Pacers, offense overs in this game. I think the 1 day of rest, the adjustments factor it favors OKC now. So yeah, I wouldn't feel great about it personally.
Uh, what do you have Toppin projected at for this game, Kyle, for points?
Uh, 10.6.
Ooh, okay. Little bit of a step back for Toppin, who I love that he's having this moment. Obi's one of my favorite players to watch. Bruce Slayton's on SGA over 1.5 steals and Halliburton over 2.5 turnovers. Chris, you've been really good about the turnover stuff. Do you think Halliburton gets stripped tonight?
I think that's more likely. He's been over this in all the games. Now he's been generally really good at taking care of the ball throughout the season, but we know this OKC defense just hits different. Home road. I mean, they're better at forcing turnovers when they're at home. That is OKC, but even still, I mean, you saw 4 turnovers for Halliburton last game. I think one way or another, he probably gets there. Like if his minutes get cut, it's probably because they're getting blown out more likely than they're just blowing OKC out. So if they're getting blown out, he probably has more than 2.5 turnovers. And if he plays a ton of minutes, it's probably going to happen regardless, just because that OKC defense is so good. So yeah, I'm thinking about that one as well.
David Martell, who's been with us for most of these shows, he said he split a unit on Siakam and iHeart for rebounding game leader around plus 250. Siakam, I think I love his rebounding props in this series overall. iHeart's an interesting one, right? Like that's a good way to play kind of the extreme end of the debate between me and Kyle, right? So instead of it being just like barely getting over, you can go the full way and be like, look, if he plays a lot more and is a lot more effective and then has a really good rebounding game. Although I think, Chet's been good at rebounding. Tyrese has actually been really good at rebounding. Toppin's been really good. If he plays more tonight, if they try and go even smaller, those are kind of angles to look out as well.
I like that
Andrew,
one. I like that one a lot because if if iHeart go like plays more, then it's kind of like very inversely correlated where Siakam now you're probably gonna get more double big. And I do think iHeart plays more than more. I think about it because I remember there was a play in the last game where Obi Toppin just flew over like 3 Thunder and nobody was boxing out. And Doris and RJ were calling him out. So if that's the case, it's gonna be iHeart. But if OKC, is playing small and then I think Siakam's going to have a lot more of a chance, especially for the fact that Turner is not always in the paint himself, whether it's offensively or defensively.
uh, we got a few more here before we get out of here. Kyle, can you real quick look up what you got for Caruso for assists? Andrew Laws says I'm running back Isaiah Hartenstein over 1.5 assists. We've kind of already talked about the opportunities there, and Caruso under 2.5 assists, even though both lost game three. That Caruso spot in particular seems like it's pretty valuable. I was looking at that this morning. I wasn't able to pull the trigger because of where the market is at on it, but it does look kind of nice. Kyle, what do you think about Caruso under 2.5 assists?
Yeah, I think that one's fine. I mean, I have him for 2.7 assists, so
Yeah.
I would slightly lean the under, but not a huge edge in my projections.
Okie doke. And then this is a good question I thought from Joshua Alexander. What bench player do you see going for double digits? And then on top of that, we've got Slim Jillian saying, can Mathurin do anything in this game if they're getting blown out? So Chris, like Mathurin was the story in game three. And so obviously like I don't think you should be playing into that because his market's gonna be steamed up a little bit here because everyone really noticed how good he was. Carlisle made a very subtle adjustment in his bench rotations in game three. He put Neesmith in. He pulled Neesmith first quarter and had him play with that second unit so that McConnell's got multiple spacers, and that allowed them a lot more room, which is what helped Matherin get going. Because in the first two games, when Matherin was trying to create, it was a disaster. He was getting locked up and facing like three levels of defense. But do you want to, when you're in the spot and a guy just has come off of a game like that? I know that probably the angle is to stay away, but how do you make a read? And if not, what's like a bench player you think they could go for double digits tonight?
Actually hate Matherin's, overs just because I think he's just going to be a key part of the series going forward. I think that I expected them to play him more. Again, I think I know he's not known for his defense, but I think he can navigate screens and some of the things OKC was doing on that side of the ball. And then, he can get to the line. He could create his own offense. So he's not going to shoot 8, 9 for 12 like he did in last game, but he did have 14 in game two. So I don't hate it. But like you said, these things kind of ebb and flow. So this is probably the least enthusiastic I've been about him over the last 3 games. But I do think bench player, I actually think TJ McConnell could score in this game. I know, last game he was kind of doing everything, but I just think that he's going to be on the floor a little bit more too, because I think Indiana wants the ball handlers. I think Indiana wants, to get in the paint and kind of create from there. And McConnell helps him do that. And, he was getting a lot of dishes last game. Got the 7 potential assists. I think converted on 5 of them. Our guy Joe was betting on that 1-3 from TJ. I think you might get it in this game. I think you might get it in this game because I think they just have to kind of cut off his lanes to the paint even more and stay home on the shooters and kind of, let him go one-on-one and live with that because, you trust all your on-ball defenders anyway.
Okay, that's going to do it for Buckets pregame. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate you guys being with us. My thanks to Chris Raybon at Chris Raybon in the Action Network app. Kyle Murray is at KMurDFS. If you got a chance and you want to catch up on the U.S. Open, go read his piece on the PGA's U.S. Open as well. My thanks to Gifford Gould, our producer, hanging out with us on a Friday night because Gift's the best. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back post-game. You can catch us there. Give us your comments. Give us your thoughts on game 4, as well as what you're betting going into game 5 of the NBA Finals. Appreciate you guys being with us. Till next time, let's get buckets.